Hello everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have a special video for you, a little bit of a celebratory video because the day before today, as this video is coming out, on August 7th was the 3-year anniversary of this YouTube channel. And I was trying to come up with something to do as like a little anniversary type video, because I've done one or two things like that. You know, I think I did something for the first anniversary. I can't remember if I did anything last year, but I just kind of like the idea of, you know, every year around the time that this channel celebrates its anniversary, I want to do something special for it. So I was trying to think of something a little different to do for this year, and I thought it would be nice to kind of take a look back across all the books that I have read since starting this YouTube channel and talk about the ones that have most impacted me since I started, which obviously could be a pretty long list if I wanted to make it long, but I narrowed it down to 6. There are 2 series on here, so technically it's more than 6 books, but I have 2 series and then 4 individual books. And also, these are not the books that most impacted me across my entire life, because I've been reading since before I started this channel, but just since the time that I started this channel, I'm only including books that I read after I started this channel. One of these is a little bit of a cheat, but not really, and I'll explain that when I get there. But I do have 6 things here to talk about. So, and all of these are some of my favorite books of all time, and ones that for one reason or another had a big impact on me personally since starting this channel. So I'm gonna go in the order that I read all of these in. So first things first is the one that is a little bit of a cheat, which is the Star Wars The New Jedi Order series. Now this is a little bit of a cheat because I read the first 3 books in the series prior to starting the channel, but I read books 4 through 19 while I was doing this channel. And this series had a big impact on me for several reasons. First of all, it's, I think, the longest series I've ever read, just in terms of the amount of books in it. Probably in the amount of like pages as well, I would imagine. And just as a Star Wars fan as well, it was super fun. It was super rewarding just seeing like how this series all came together, especially in the end. Like, everything just came together so well. Some of my favorite Star Wars books are in this series. Some of my favorite moments in Star Wars books are in this series. Debatably, my number 1 favorite Star Wars book is in this series, and that would be Traitor. So this book, this series just had a big impact on me for just the journey that it took me on. 19 books is a lot, and I just had such a fun time going through them all. Even though I didn't love every book, I would say I loved a good 3/4 of the series. There's maybe 4 or 5 books that I didn't quite care for too much, but the vast majority of them I really enjoyed, and just the journey overall was just so well worth it, and so just exciting and emotional, and it's just a series that I love a lot, and for me as a Star Wars fan, really kind of enhanced my excitement for Star Wars in a lot of ways, especially even just reading Star Wars books in general over the last few years has really kind of rekindled my love for Star Wars, but this series especially really kind of did that for me. It's been kind of sad ever since I finished it, I think about a year ago, because, back when I was reading it, it was like, oh, every month or 2 I would, read another book, and it'd be like, oh, another step in this great journey. Yeah, so that was a very fun experience, and one of my favorite series of all time, definitely one that had a big impact on me. The next thing to talk about here is actually the first book on this list that I actually reviewed on this channel out of these ones that I'm going to be talking about, even though I started New Jedi Order first. This was the first one out of this list that I actually talked about on the channel, which is The Fisherman by John Langan. I have said many times over the course of this channel's life that this is one of my favorite books of all time, for so many reasons. This book kind of captures a little bit of a sense of like Lovecraftian horror that I really like. And, as much as I love H.P. Lovecraft and all that stuff, I did mostly read his work, or I started reading his work before I started this channel. Otherwise, he absolutely would have appeared on here. But The Fisherman kind of captured a little bit of that, as well as just having this really interesting story, this very personal story, and just one of my favorite explorations of a book's theme in any book that I've ever read. Exploring things like grief and loss and things like that. One of the most emotionally impactful books that I've ever read, I think. And this book had, I think, such a big impact on me, as did, all the rest of them on this list. And I would say this applies to every book on this list, but especially for The Fisherman, had such a big impact on me that it's one that I still regularly think about when I'm talking to friends about books. It's one that I still regularly bring up as like, oh, you should read this because it's awesome. And all that kind of thing. It is a book that just had such a big impact on me, and I just love it so much. It is a very dark and kind of sad and dreary book in a lot of ways, and it's got a little bit of a horror flavor to it, so it's got some creepy moments to it as well. But it is one of those books that I just love with all my heart, and I would love to reread it sometime. I'm also a little bit afraid to eventually, because if I ever do reread it, I'm afraid I won't love it the same way as I did the first time. I don't expect that to happen, but this is one of those books that I probably won't reread anytime soon, because I have already reviewed it on the channel, so I feel like a reread and a re-review might be a little, it might be too soon for that, but I would love to reread this someday. I'm even now kind of wanting to reread it just recently, but so we'll see if I ever do that or not. But one of my absolute favorite books of all time, for sure. The next thing that I have here to talk about is a series that I have talked about several times on this channel. It is my favorite series of all time. And if you're seeing the shirt that I'm wearing here with my Edge Dancer shirt here, that is the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, which at this moment is a 5-book series, although 10 books are planned. This Sanderson is probably my favorite author, so I could really include the entire Cosmere on this list. Granted, I did read a handful of books prior to starting the channel, but the Stormlight Archive especially had a huge impact on me. This is the series that I think really made me realize how much I love just big, huge stories. The books are so long. They're like 12, 13, 1400 pages each, but I could just sit and read them for hours. Even though they're long, I'd always just enjoyed reading them. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the world. And this book just had such a big impact on me emotionally once again. The journeys of all the characters had big impacts on me in different ways. Kaladin's journey impacted me in certain ways, especially in the first book, but really throughout the entire series. And Dalinar in book 3 especially, but also throughout the series really had a big impact on me. The last book, Wind and Truth, the ending of that book really hit well for me. Like, just all kinds of things about this series. There are characters that I have grown to love and care about, and, when bad things happen to them, it makes me cry, and just moments that make me want to, just jump out of my seat in excitement, because there are just some amazing moments in this series. And just everything about these books, generally, I would say, just really works for me in so many ways, and definitely is some of the most impactful books that I have ever read. I would say especially Way of Kings and Oathbringer, but really all 5 of the books have had something like that in their own way that really resonated with me a lot. And so that's why I include those ones. And like I said, it's my favorite series. I've got to mention it here, obviously. Now, the next 2 books that I have to talk about are both actually Stephen King books that both impacted me in very different ways. First one I'm going to talk about is going to be Misery. Now, this one, I really enjoyed Misery. I really had a good time with it. I had a bad time with it in a good way, because this book had an impact on me that is unlike almost any other book that I've read. In fact, I'd say probably unlike any other book I've read, period, which is this book made me so viscerally uncomfortable and tense and Like, I have never felt so anxious reading a book as I did reading Misery. And that's the reason I include it here. Like, when it comes to the intensity of emotional reaction I've had to book, you know, you have the really high highs of something like Stormlight, where it's just excitement and all of this stuff. And then you have, you know, the sadness when bad things happen in those books, or in something like New Jedi Order or whatever. Or the intense theming of like grief and things like that in The Fisherman. This one had high emotion to it, but in like the anxiety and the fear. Like, I have never felt just so incredibly uncomfortable reading a book. And even though this isn't the one that had the biggest impact on me in terms of how much I loved the characters and the story, even though it's a fantastic book, this one, like, when I think of the books that had the biggest emotional impact, this one definitely has that, just in a very different way than most other books do, and certainly much more differently than, I would say, all of the other books on this list. However, I do have one other Stephen King book to talk about, but it didn't quite do the same thing for me as Misery, which is Pet Sematary. This one, to me, had a very similar impact as The Fisherman in terms of exploring themes like grief and loss and things like that, and especially impacted me a lot as a parent. I've got 2 little kids, and this book hit so hard for me as a parent, and just and everything about it, like the story it told and everything, the fear factor of it, the just imagining myself in the position that the characters are placed in this book, all of that kind of thing just really hit for me, had a huge impact on me. And as I was reading it, like, I was brought to tears at points in this book, because not necessarily like it was super sad. I mean, there's some sadness to this book for sure, but just the thought of the things in this book happening, which goes even just beyond, like, you know, the themes of loss and things like that, but it goes even further beyond that. Like, all the things that happen, like all the big things going on in this book towards like the back half of the book, like just imagining that really hit me, and just it's just a fantastic book, and just had a huge impact on me in so many ways. And especially, you know, at this point in my life, it is one of those books that I think would hit you very differently, depending on where you're at in your life. And I think for the point that I was at in my life when I read it, it really did hit for me, and is absolutely one of my favorite books. It might be my favorite Stephen King book. It's kind of hard to pick one, because I love several of them that I've read. I've read 6 of them now, and I would say 4 of them fight for my top spot. But yeah, absolutely love this one, though, and had a definite big impact on me. Then we come to the most recent book that is on this list, which is one I only read a couple months ago, which is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This one didn't have, again, kind of a different kind of impact than some of these other ones. You know, Fisherman really hit me because of the emotionalness, if that's a word, of like the themes and things like that, and also just was a really engaging story. New Jedi Order and Stormlight Archive have just these big epic moments with characters that I really connected with and all these kinds of things. Misery just made me so anxious and uncomfortable. Pet Sematary had that kind of theming of grief and everything, but also in a way that felt very personal to me. Legends and Lattes is like the inverse of something like Pet Sematary or Misery for me. This book had such a sense of comfort and things like that. And it's one of those books that, you know, sometimes you experience certain art, you know, whether it be a song or a video game or a movie or a book in this case, at just the right time in your life. And that's what this was for me. This spring was an incredibly stressful time in my life. It is one of the, like, just, I'm not going to get super into it, but there was like 3 things that happened, all one after another. Not necessarily all of them intensely bad, but was a very stressful, very chaotic time in my life that lasted for like a good month and a half or 2 months. And I read this book right as that was winding down, and it was just like, it was the book that I needed at that time. And it was just such a sense of comfort, of, I described it in my review as like a warm hug in book form, and that's how I would describe this book. It was like you know, coming after all of the chaos that was that time, this was just the book that I really needed. And in terms, again, of emotional impact in that way, this one was also very high. Not necessarily like the characters I loved the most, not necessarily the most heart-wrenching story, even though I did love the story and I did love the characters, but just in terms of how this book hit me emotionally after that time, and at the time that I read it, was just something that I needed so much, and really did impact me quite a lot. So that's why I include that one on this list. So that pretty much wraps up this video. Thought it would be kind of a nice thing to do to kind of look back on the last few years doing this channel, talk about some of the books that really impacted me. And there's other books I could have included for sure, but I did want to, you know, narrow it down because this video is already getting a little bit long. I didn't want to take too much time. I really wanted to focus on the ones that really had the biggest impact on me. So these are the ones that I chose. So that's pretty much it for this one. Thank you guys for 3 years running this channel. You have really, this channel means a lot to me, being able to do this, knowing that there are people out there who are watching, who care about my thoughts on these things, care about, you know, the comments and all the, and hearing from you guys and everything really means a lot to me. And I just appreciate you guys continuing to support me and to support the channel. And I just hope that things continue to grow and be awesome from here. So thank you to all of you for continuing to support this channel. So that's pretty much it for this video. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.